Keeper of the Lost Cities, Everblaze, Chapter 60. Given her recent troubles, Sophie would have expected her parents to keep her far, far away from very illegal scrolls that Fitz, Keith, and Bianna were holding. Instead, they left them in the living room with mallow melt and lushberry juice and went upstairs. They did tell Sandor to keep an eye on things, but mostly they seemed relieved to see Sophie doing something normal again. Or maybe they knew she was too useless to be involved anyhow. The Black Swan must have thought the same thing. Apparently they'd given Keith a note within hours of Sophie's sentencing, instructing him to tell Fitz and Bianna about his dad and wait for a new plan, replacing one telepath for another, with Vanisher as a bonus. It was hard not to be bitter. Her friend sat on the couch opposite her, looking anywhere except her forehead. "You can stop pretending not to notice it," Sophie mumbled. She managed to cover part of her circlet with her hair, but the bands that crossed her forehead and the flat beige stone that rested between her brows were impossible to hide, unless she put a bag over her head, which she was actually considering. "Honestly, I think it's pretty," Bianna said, earning herself an elbow from Fitz. "What? I know it's a terrible thing, but at least it's not ugly on top of that. Wouldn't that be worse?" Sophie almost wanted to smile. Leave it to Bianna to consider the fashion sense of an ability-restricting accessory. "Does it hurt?" Fitz said after a second. "Yeah," Keith told him, before Sophie could lie. "I can feel it from here. And I gotta say, Sophie, I like Dex, but I kinda want to kick him in his special place." "Me too," Fitz agreed. "Me 3, Sandor added from his post near the front door. Sophie sighed. She didn't want to hate Dex, but it was hard when just concentrating on the conversation felt like it was wringing all the energy out of her brain. She already shoved a ring he'd made her deep into the bottom of her drawer, along with her iPod and anything else he'd even given her. And as soon as she had the chance, she was dyeing Iggy back to gray. Still, Dex wasn't the only one to blame. It was my fault, too, if I hadn't tried to read King Dimitar's mind. She couldn't finish the sentence, and she definitely couldn't look at Fitz, remembering the way he'd tried to warn her. "It's not your fault," Fitz promised, leaning closer to her. "The council's being idiots, and if it helps, there are lots of people who agree." Sophie snorted. "I'm sure there are lots of people who were clapping." There were, Bianna admitted, but mostly everybody was stunned silent. "Dude, even my dad thought it was messed up," Keith jumped in. "And if that doesn't say something..." His words felt like a slap to the cheek, and Sophie hung her head, realizing she was pouting about a circlet when Keith's whole world was crumbling. "How's everything going?" she asked quietly. Keith shrugged. My dad doesn't know I know. My mom asked a couple of times if I'm okay, but I'm sure she just thinks I'm worried about you." "I still don't think you should be staying there," Fitz said, squeezing the edge of the couch. "What if Lord Cassius figures out that you're onto him? Then he'll see I'm ready for him." Keith pulled back his sleeve to reveal a row of goblin throwing stars. The steel in his eyes said he wouldn't hesitate to use them, but there was a quiver in his voice as he added, "I'm keeping close track of his emotions. If I sense anything weird, I'll head to Everglen, but until then, I'm still sticking to the plan." "I still don't like it," Fitz mumbled. "Me either," Bianna agreed. The anger in their tones made Sophie wonder how they'd reacted when Keith first told them about his dad. After all, they'd known Lord Cassius for years. She was almost glad she hadn't been there. "Besides," Keith said, clearing his throat and pulling away his sleeve, "it'll all be over soon anyways. That's why we're here. Not that we didn't want to check on you," he told Sophie. "Right," Bianna quickly added. "We've actually been here every day. Could you hear us? We couldn't tell." Sophie's face burned, imagining how ridiculous she probably looked, sulking under her covers. "Sorry, I guess I'm not handling this as well as I should be." There is no should be," Keith told her. "I'd be freaking out just as much if it happened to me. Probably more." "Me too," Bianna agreed. "I never could have done what you did." "What did I do?" Sophie repeated. "I hid in Dame Elena's office. Or, I guess it's Magnate Lita's office now. When you were with the counselors," Bianna admitted, "I heard the awful things they said. I saw how you stopped resisting once they threatened to exile Dex. I don't think I ever could have been that brave. Me either, Fitz agreed. But Sophie's the bravest person I know. What's wrong? He asked, as she tried to blink back tears. Is the circlet hurting? No. Well, yeah, it always hurts, Sophie admitted, drying her eyes with her sleeve. But I'm not brave. I've been feeling sorry for myself for... How many days has it been? 3, Keith admitted. 3 days, she mumbled miserably. So much time wasted. I thought no one would want anything to do with me. Why? They all asked in unison. She waved her hands around her head, like that explained everything. Keith laughed. You worry about the craziest things, Foster. I'm basically the council's enemy number 1, she argued. So? Bianna asked. Yeah, that actually ups your cool points, Keith added. And you know what the council's doing, right? Fitz asked. People were judging them for not having freshmen ready to stop the Everblaze, and for not making the healing safe enough in the first place, and for not catching even one of the rebels all these weeks. So they made you the scapegoat to take attention off themselves. Besides, Foster, Keith said, waiting for her to look at him, when are you going to realize that you could wrap yourself in neon green feathers and start walking around roaring like a dinosaur, and we'd still hang out with you? Shoot, I'd join in. I would too, Fitz agreed. Me too. Though I want pink feathers, Bianna decided. This time, Sophie couldn't help smiling, and somehow it made her head hurt a little less. Enough that she finally felt ready to ask, so how much longer are we going to pretend you're not holding scrolls from the Black Swan? We're not pretending, Fitz said after a second. We just didn't want to upset you. Because the Black Swan's plan doesn't include me. Actually, they sent us to you. Keith moved to the empty seat next to her and unrolled his scroll, which contained the longest message the Black Swan had ever used. In order to guard those who must be protected, our plan has changed and been perfected. A team of 3 will unite for the trip to the head of the sky on the northern tip. A cave of horrors will set the stage where green brutes rest and never age. Further plans will await your arrival. Destroying this note will ensure your survival. Seek the moonlark to set you on your way. Then find us at sunrise on the 3rd day. Sunrise on the 3rd day? Sophie asked. That was today. No, they gave these to us this morning. They were hidden in our lockers at Foxfire. Foxfire? Sophie hadn't realized she'd been missing school. Not that it mattered. Her ability sessions would be replaced, and those were the only subjects she'd been doing well in. So, you're the Moonlark, right? Keith asked, like he could feel her mood plummeting. That's what the line means. I think so, she mumbled. Good, because that's pretty much the only thing we can translate, Bianna admitted. And we aren't fans of the Cave of Horror line, Fitz added. Yeah, please tell me that's a joke or something, Foster, because I already did a Cave of Horrors thing with you a few weeks ago, and it wasn't awesome. I'm sure they mean a different cave, but I've never heard of Head of the Sky, or Green Boots, or... Her voice trailed off as a hazy memory filled her mind. A lecture from one of her old high school teachers, back when she was living with humans. Actually, she said, rereading the note again, I think they mean Mount Everest. The Head of the Sky is another name humans use for it. Sometimes, and the sanctuary is built into the Himalayas, right? So, if Sylvanie's the ruse, it would make sense the Black Swan would choose there. The southeast ridge has a cave where the climbers in green boots froze to death. They all call it Green Boots Cave because the bodies are still there, preserved in the ice. Ew! Why haven't the human bodies been taken away? Bianna asked. Because it's way up in the dead zone of the mountains, where the conditions are too treacherous to move them. I remember my teacher telling me there's, hundreds of bodies scattered all over the mountains. That might be the saddest thing I've ever heard, Fitz said quietly. Why would the Black Swan pick there? Maybe they wanted to creep the Neverseen out, Keith suggested. And if so, I'm pretty sure it'll be mission accomplished. But how are you supposed to get there? Sophie asked. You can't teleport. Though she realized with a pang that she couldn't teleport either. And you can't walk from the entrance of the sanctuary in less than 3 days. Even if you could, you'd need a team of Sherpas and oxygen tanks and years of training. Climbing Everest is one of the most dangerous things humans can do. Then why do they do it? Bianna asked. Sophie had asked her history teacher the same thing, and he'd given her the same answer she gave them, to see if they can. Bianna crinkled her nose. Humans are weird. Maybe, Fitz agreed, but you gotta admire the bravery it takes to look at a massive mountain, knowing how deadly it is, and think, you know what, I'm gonna climb it anyway. Sounds a bit like our Foster, doesn't it? Keith asked. Maybe that's why she set the new record for near-death experiences. Not anymore, Sophie mumbled. Now she was just a message translator, sitting in her cushy house while her friends risked their lives for her. You guys shouldn't do this. It's crazy. But it's smart, too, Fitz argued. Think about it. If it's that dangerous for us, and we have time to prepare, how much worse will it be for the Neverseen when they show up and find themselves on the top of a deadly mountain? I bet that's another reason the Black Swan picked it. And my note came with this, Bianna added, holding out a tiny black swan charm. Sophie looked away, wishing she didn't feel so replaced. But that used to be her charm. That still won't get you there, she said after a second. Not without some sort of special light or something. Yeah, they'll probably give that to us on the day, just like they did last time, Keith reminded her. Better hope they give you oxygen, too. You won't survive up there without it. None of your clothes will be warm enough. And even then, you'll still have to deal with the Neverseen. And Trap. Or, no, they will fight back. Her voice trailed off when she realized she was technically talking about Keith's dad. Keith patted his sleeve full of weapons again, his face white as a bone. I have to stop him from hurting anyone else. Fitz and Bianna don't have to, but we're going with you, Bianna insisted. Yeah, you're not doing this alone, Fitz agreed. Sophie sighed. Did the Black Swan have you tell your dad that they're going instead of me? I told him Fitz is coming to handle your telepathic stuff with Sylvanie, but he doesn't know Bianna will be there, and I'm going to make sure it stays that way. I'm the secret weapon, Bianna said, vanishing again to prove it. Sophie stared out the window, watching the sun creep towards the horizon. It's really hard to sit back and let you guys risk your lives for this. Tell me about it, Grady called from the top of the stairs, making everyone jump. Did you really think I wasn't listening up here? I did, Keith admitted. Grady came down to join them. Please, you can't tell anyone about my dad. If he finds out... I know, Grady interrupted, holding out a hand to calm him. But before I agree, I have to ask. Are you sure he's part of the Neverseen? Yeah, Keith mumbled, squeezing his sensing crest to pin. When he couldn't elaborate, Sophie explained about the arrow mark they'd found on Keith's hands and how the Neverseen kept finding them. Grady's expression turned murderous. You can't tell anyone, Keith reminded him. We need him to lead us to the others first. Right, Grady said, running his hands down his face. You can't crush the first ant you find. You have to wait for the queen. So I'll keep your secret for now. But I will have goblins on standby near Candleshade in case things don't go as planned. And you two need to tell your father, he told Fitz and Bianna. I'm sure he'll see the logic behind the Black Swan's strategy, especially with the Council's current uselessness. But he should know that his children are going, and have the chance to make adjustments to keep you safe, okay? He glanced at each other before they both nodded. Good. I'm going to make a few adjustments of my own, Grady added. First, Sandor's coming with you. Sandor frowned. But, Miss Foster... We'll be perfectly safe right here, Grady interrupted. You should be with everyone at the mountain, and I should mention that this is the only way I'll agree to this plan. Otherwise, I will find a way to stop you. Keith shrugged. It's fine with me, as long as Gigantor's cool with it. Sandor surprised him by bowing his head. It would be my honor, Mr. Sensen. Ugh, can't we stick with Keith? I'm not exactly a fan of that name right now. Sandor nodded. Then I guess that settles that, Keith said, holding out his hands to Fitz and Bianna. I'll need your scrolls. It says to destroy them. I can do that, Grady said, removing a silver flint from his pocket. He lit the scrolls with a purple flame, letting the flame crawl all over the paper like glowing moss until there was nothing but a pile of ash. By the way, Keith, Grady said, dusting the ash off his fingers, I'm sorry your father is caught up in this. I'm hoping there's been a mistake, and if not, I want you to know that you can come to me anytime. Same goes for all of you, he told Fitz and Biana. We have enough fighting against us at the moment, and if we're going to survive in the coming days, we're going to have to trust one another and work together. Can we do that? Everyone nodded. Good. Then let's have another piece of mellow melt. I have a feeling this will be our last peaceful meal for a few days.